The rain hammered against the windows of the Neverland Ranch estate as Detective Maria Santos stood in the grand entrance hall, her badge catching the dim light from the crystal chandelier above. It was June 2024, 15 years after Michael Jackson's death, and she had been called here for something extraordinary. The new owners, a wealthy tech entrepreneur and his wife, had discovered something during renovations that would shake the entire world. "It's behind the library," Mrs. Chen said, her voice trembling as she led Maria through the mansion's winding corridors. The estate had changed hands 3 times since Michael's passing, but nobody had found what lay hidden in the walls. "We were installing a new security system when the contractor noticed the measurements didn't match up. There was a 6-foot gap that shouldn't exist." Maria's heart raced as they approached the library, a massive room lined with thousands of books from floor to ceiling. The contractor, a burly man named Tom, stood beside a section of the bookshelf that had been pulled away from the wall, revealing a steel door with an electronic keypad that still glowed faintly green. "The power source is independent," Tom explained. "Solar panels hidden on the roof, batteries built into the walls. Someone wanted this to stay operational forever." Maria stepped forward and examined the keypad. Her years in the department had prepared her for many things, but not this. 9 buttons, each labeled with a musical note instead of numbers. She photographed everything, documenting a discovery that would soon dominate every news channel on Earth. "Has anyone tried to open it?" she asked. "We were waiting for the police," Mr. Chen replied. "The moment we saw what it was, we knew this was bigger than us." Maria called her captain, requesting a full forensic team and a warrant, though technically they had permission from the current owners. While they waited, she studied the door. Michael Jackson, the king of pop, had been one of the most scrutinized people in human history. How had he managed to create this secret room without anyone knowing? The construction alone would have required contractors, materials, delivery trucks. Yet there was no record of it anywhere. The forensic team arrived within an hour, led by Dr. Raymond Foster, a man who had worked on some of the biggest cases in California history. He examined the keypad with specialized equipment, his brow furrowed in concentration. "This is military-grade encryption," he said finally, "the kind of thing governments use to protect nuclear codes." Whoever installed this knew exactly what they were doing. "Can you open it?" Maria asked. "Give me time. The system is designed to wipe everything if someone enters the wrong code too many times. We need to be careful." For 3 days, Dr. Foster worked on the lock while the media circus outside the estate gates grew larger. Someone had leaked the story, and now the whole world waited with bated breath. Theories exploded across social media. Some claimed it was evidence of Michael's innocence in the accusations that had plagued him. Others suggested financial secrets or hidden recordings. The conspiracy theorists had their own ideas, ranging from the plausible to the absolutely absurd. On the 4th day, Dr. Foster made his breakthrough. He had analyzed the frequency of sounds in Michael's most famous songs, looking for patterns. The code, he discovered, was a sequence from Billie Jean, translated into the musical notes on the keypad. The door opened with a soft hiss, revealing a climate-controlled room about 12 feet square. Maria entered first, her flashlight cutting through the darkness until she found the light switch. Fluorescent bulbs flickered to life, illuminating what Michael had hidden from the world. The room was simple but purposeful. One wall held a massive server system, still humming quietly after all these years. Another wall displayed photographs, hundreds of them, showing Michael with various people, some famous, others unknown. But it was the center of the room that took Maria's breath away. A single desk with a leather journal, and beside it, a video camera on a tripod aimed at an empty chair. Maria's hand shook as she picked up the journal. The first page contained just one sentence in Michael's distinctive handwriting. "If you're reading this, then I'm gone, and the truth can finally be told. I pray you have the courage to hear it." The next 800 pages would reveal a secret so profound, so carefully guarded, that it would force the world to reconsider everything they thought they knew about the man who had moonwalked into history. But before Maria could read another word, Dr. Foster called out from behind the servers. "Detective, you need to see this. There are files here, thousands of them, videos, audio recordings, documents, and they're all tagged with names and dates going back 40 years. Maria closed the journal and approached the servers. On the screen, Dr. Foster had opened the directory listing. The files were organized meticulously, each folder labeled with a year and a subject. But one folder sat alone at the top of the directory, marked simply, The Truth. Watch this first. Maria's finger hovered over the mouse. Whatever was in that video, whatever Michael had recorded in the secret room, would either condemn him forever or redeem him in ways nobody could imagine. The weight of that responsibility settled on her shoulders like a physical burden. She clicked the file. The video player opened, showing Michael sitting in the chair that still waited empty in front of them. His face appeared tired but determined, his eyes carrying the sadness of someone who knew his time was running out. "My name is Michael Joseph Jackson," his recorded voice began, "and this is my confession." Michael's face filled the screen, and Maria felt the room's temperature drop despite the climate control. This wasn't the Michael the world had seen on stage or in music videos. This was a man stripped of pretense, sitting in his secret sanctuary, preparing to reveal something that had eaten at his soul for decades. "I'm recording this on May 15th, 2009, Michael said, his voice soft but clear. "I don't know how much time I have left. The people around me, the people I trusted, they've been poisoning me slowly. I know that sounds paranoid, but I have proof. It's all here in this room. But that's not the secret I need to share. That's just a symptom of something much larger, something that's been destroying me since I was a child." Maria paused the video and called her captain. Within 2 hours, the room was filled with officials from multiple agencies. The Los Angeles Police Department, the FBI, and even representatives from the district attorney's office crowded into the space, all watching as Maria restarted the recording. "My father didn't just abuse me physically," Michael continued, his hands clasped tightly in his lap. "He sold me, not in the way you might think. He sold my silence, my compliance, my soul to powerful people in the entertainment industry. I was 7 years old when it started. They told me it was the price of fame, that every star had to pay this price. They said if I ever told anyone, they would kill my mother and my siblings. I believed them because I was a child, and children believe adults, especially when those adults have already proven they can hurt you." The room fell into shocked silence. Maria watched Michael's face on the screen, seeing the tears that rolled down his cheeks as he spoke. "But here's the secret that I've kept locked away, the truth that made them fear me most. I wasn't the only one. There were dozens of us, children who were passed around among producers, executives, managers, and investors. We were commodities, product to be used and discarded, and I kept evidence of all of it." Michael gestured to the servers behind him. "Everything is documented here. Photographs that I secretly took, audio recordings from hidden devices, contracts that spell out the crimes in legal language designed to protect the guilty. I collected it all, piece by piece, over 40 years. Every person who hurt me or hurt another child, their sins are recorded in this room." Maria felt sick. She had worked child abuse cases before, but this was different. This was systematic, organized, protected by wealth and power on a scale she could barely comprehend. "You're probably wondering why I never came forward," Michael said, as if reading her mind across the years. I tried 3 times. The first time, I was 12 years old. I told a teacher at the studio school. She disappeared the next week. They said she moved away, but I heard her screaming in my dreams for years afterward. The second time, I was 17. I told a lawyer who promised to help me. He died in a car accident 2 days later. The accident report called it brake failure, but I knew better. The third time, I was in my 20s, and I went to the police. The detective I spoke to, a man named Richard Morrison, he listened to everything. He believed me. He said he would investigate." Michael's face hardened, anger flashing in his eyes. "Detective Morrison killed himself 3 days later. That's what the official report said. But I found out later that his family was threatened. His daughter was followed home from school. His wife received photographs of herself sleeping in their bedroom, taken from inside their house. Morrison didn't kill himself. He was murdered by the same system that protected my abusers. And his family was given a choice: accept the suicide story and receive a substantial settlement, or keep asking questions and face consequences. They chose to survive. I don't blame them." The video continued, and Michael explained the elaborate network that had protected these criminals for generations. It wasn't just the entertainment industry. It extended into politics, finance, and media. These people owned newspapers and television stations. They donated to political campaigns and sat on the boards of police foundations. They had created a perfect shield, and anyone who threatened to penetrate that shield was eliminated. So I changed my strategy, Michael said. Instead of fighting them directly, I became the best insurance policy I could imagine. I gathered evidence on everyone, every transaction, every crime, every cover-up. And I let certain people know that if anything happened to me suddenly, if I died in a convenient accident or unexpected illness, everything would be released automatically. I set up systems, people who didn't know each other, who would each release portions of the data if I failed to check in regularly. I made myself more dangerous dead than alive. Maria realized what she was watching. This wasn't just a confession. It was a dead man switch that had finally been triggered. But I made a mistake, Michael continued, his voice breaking. I got sloppy. I trusted the wrong doctor. In my pain, in my desperation for sleep and relief from the demons that haunted me, I let someone get close who shouldn't have. And now I'm dying. Not quickly enough for it to look suspicious, but dying nonetheless. The medications they're giving me, the combinations they're prescribing, it's killing me slowly. And the worst part is that I've become dependent on them. I need them to function, to sleep, to get through the day. They've turned my own weaknesses into the weapon that will kill me. Michael leaned forward, looking directly into the camera with an intensity that made Maria feel like he was in the room with them. If you're watching this, then their plan worked. I'm dead, and they probably made it look like an accident or an overdose. They'll blame me, say I was reckless with drugs, that I was mentally unstable. The media will tear me apart like they always did. But now you have the truth. Now you have the evidence. The question is, what are you going to do with it? The video ended abruptly, leaving the room in stunned silence. Maria looked around at the officials surrounding her. Some appeared skeptical, others horrified. But everyone understood the magnitude of what they had just witnessed. We need to verify everything, the FBI agent said, breaking the silence. These are serious allegations, but we need proof beyond a video recording. The proof is here, Dr. Foster replied, pointing to the servers. I've been scanning the directory while we watched. There are over 40,000 files. Videos, audio recordings, photographs, financial documents. If even a fraction of this is genuine, we're looking at the biggest criminal conspiracy in American history. Maria picked up Michael's journal again, opening to a page at random. The entry was dated November 1993, during the first allegations against Michael. She read aloud, "They're using the same playbook against me that they use on others who threaten to expose them. Take someone's kindness and twist it into something evil. Take their love for children and make it seem perverted. The boy and his family, they're being paid. I have proof. The negotiations were recorded. But if I release that proof, they'll kill me and make it look like suicide from the shame. So I'll settle. I'll pay the money, and I'll let the world think I'm guilty. It's the only way to stay alive long enough to gather more evidence, to protect the other children, to finally bring them all down." The room erupted in chaos. Officials argued about jurisdiction, about protocol, about the political implications. But Maria tuned them out, continuing to read Michael's private words. Each entry revealed another layer of the conspiracy, another name, another crime. And slowly, a picture emerged of a man who had sacrificed his own reputation, his own happiness, everything he held dear, to protect others and to build a case that would outlast him. "There's another video file," Dr. Foster announced. "It's labeled the names. It's 3 hours long." Everyone fell silent again. Maria knew what was coming. Michael had promised to name names, and now they would have to face the consequences of hearing them. The second video began with Michael standing this time, pacing in front of the camera like a professor preparing to deliver the most important lecture of his life. Behind him, the wall of photographs came into focus, and Maria realized with growing horror that each picture had been carefully chosen and positioned for this moment. "I'm going to name names now," Michael said directly. "But before I do, I need you to understand something crucial. These aren't just bad people who did bad things. This is a system, a machine that was built over generations. Some of the people I'm about to name are dead. Some are still alive. Some were victims who became perpetrators. Some were evil from the start. But all of them participated in or protected a network designed to exploit children and silence anyone who threatened to expose it. Michael walked to the wall of photographs and pointed to a black-and-white image from the 1950s showing a group of men in suits standing outside a Hollywood studio. This is where it started, or at least where the modern version began. These 7 men founded what they called the Collective. They were studio executives, talent agents, and investors. Their public mission was to identify and nurture young talent. Their private mission was to create a pipeline of vulnerable children they could abuse and pass among themselves. They recruited others, people in positions of power who shared their sickness. By the time I entered the industry in the late 1960s, the Collective had evolved into something much more sophisticated. Michael spent the next hour detailing the structure of the network. He explained how they used legitimate talent agencies as fronts, how they manipulated parents with promises of fame and fortune for their children, how they employed lawyers and accountants who specialized in creating contracts that bound families to silence. He described the private parties where children were presented like party favors, the hotels and estates where the abuse occurred, the doctors who treated injuries and prescribed silence along with medication. And then he started naming names. The first name hit Maria like a physical blow. She knew it. Everyone knew it. A legendary producer who had worked with virtually every major artist in the industry for 40 years. He had died in 2005, celebrated as a genius, mourned as a loss to music. Michael's voice remained steady as he detailed this man's crimes, providing dates, locations, and names of victims. He pointed to files on the server that contained proof of each allegation. The second name was worse because the person was still alive, still powerful, still producing movies and television shows that won awards and shaped culture. Michael described how this person had groomed him specifically, gaining his trust before the abuse began. He showed photographs, played audio recordings of conversations that made Maria's skin crawl. For 3 hours, Michael methodically worked through his list. 43 names in total. Producers, agents, executives, managers, lawyers, doctors, and even 2 politicians who had used their positions to protect the network in exchange for campaign donations and other favors. Some names Maria recognized immediately. Others she had to look up on her phone, only to find impressive resumes and glowing tributes. But Michael didn't just name abusers. He also identified the people who had helped him, the ones who risked everything to pass him information or protect other children when they could. A makeup artist who had secretly photographed injuries. A sound engineer who had planted recording devices. A bodyguard who had documented conversations and turned over evidence to Michael piece by piece over 2 decades. These people, Michael said, were heroes who deserved recognition and protection. "I know what you're thinking," Michael said as the video neared its end. "You're thinking this is too big, too powerful, too protected to ever bring to justice. You're thinking about the careers that will be destroyed, including those of innocent people who worked with these individuals. You're thinking about the lawsuits, the denials, the media firestorm. You're thinking it might be easier to lock this room back up and forget you ever found it." Michael stopped pacing and stared into the camera with an expression of such intensity that Maria felt it in her chest. "But I'm begging you, whoever you are, whatever your position or authority, please don't let these children have suffered for nothing. Don't let my entire life, everything I endured and sacrificed, be for nothing. These people destroyed me. They destroyed my childhood, my reputation, my ability to trust, my chance at a normal life. They made the whole world think I was a monster to hide the fact that they were the real monsters. And they did it all while smiling for cameras and accepting awards and pretending to be pillars of the community." Tears streamed down Michael's face now, his voice cracking with emotion. "I'm not a perfect man. I made mistakes. I trusted the wrong people. I handled situations poorly because I was traumatized and desperate. But I never hurt a child. Every accusation against me was manufactured by this network, either to discredit me before I could expose them or to extort money from me because they knew I'd pay anything to avoid what they put me through. The children who accused me, most of them were manipulated by their parents, who were manipulated by the network. And I forgive them because they were victims too, just like I was." Michael wiped his eyes and straightened his posture, gathering himself for his final message. You have all the evidence now. You have their names, their crimes, their methods. You have financial records showing payments made to silence victims and their families. You have medical records documenting injuries. You have recordings of them discussing their actions and planning cover-ups. You have everything you need to destroy this network completely. The only question is whether you have the courage to use it. The video ended with Michael walking out of frame, leaving the camera focused on the empty chair where his confession had begun. Maria realized she was holding her breath and forced herself to exhale. Around her, the other officials sat in various states of shock, anger, and distress. We need to authenticate everything, the FBI agent said, but his voice lacked conviction. He knew, they all knew, that what they had just witnessed was real. How do we even begin to prosecute something like this? A representative from the district attorney's office asked. The statute of limitations has expired on many of these crimes. Some of the perpetrators are dead. The political fallout alone. Are you seriously considering not pursuing this? Maria interrupted, her voice sharp. Did you not just hear what he said? He sacrificed everything and is begging us to finish what he started. I'm not saying we don't pursue it, the attorney replied defensively. I'm saying we need to be smart about how we proceed. If we mishandle this, every case gets thrown out on technicalities. We need to build the strongest possible case before we go public. Dr. Foster had been working at the computer during their discussion. Now he turned to face them, his expression grim. There's more. Michael didn't just collect evidence on the network. He documented his own surveillance, the attempts on his life, the people who were monitoring him. There are files here showing coordinated media campaigns designed to destroy his reputation. Scripts that were sent to journalists, talking points distributed to commentators, paid experts who gave opinions about his mental state without ever meeting him. The character assassination was as organized as the abuse itself. How many people are we talking about? Maria asked. How many children were victimized? Dr. Foster clicked through files, his face growing paler with each folder he opened. Based on what I'm seeing here, over 300 identified victims spanning 5 decades. But Michael notes in his documentation that these are only the ones he could verify. He believed the actual number was much higher, possibly in the thousands. The room fell into heavy silence. The magnitude of the conspiracy was overwhelming, the number of lives destroyed almost incomprehensible. Maria thought about Michael Jackson, the most famous entertainer in the world, living with this knowledge, carrying this burden, unable to speak the truth without signing his own death warrant. There's one more thing, Dr. Foster said quietly. A file labeled my death. I think we need to watch it. Everyone in the room understood what that meant. Michael had predicted his own murder and documented it in advance, creating evidence that would prove his death was no accident. Maria nodded, and Dr. Foster opened the file. Michael's face appeared on screen again, but this recording was different. His appearance had deteriorated noticeably, his skin pale, his eyes sunken. The timestamp showed it was made just 3 weeks before his death. They are going to kill me soon, Michael began, his voice weak but determined. I know this because the pattern has changed. The medication combinations have become more aggressive. My doctor, Conrad Murray, is part of it. I don't think he knows the full scope of what is involved in, but is definitely being manipulated by people in the network. They've paid off his debts, given him money he desperately needed. In exchange, his administering drugs are slowly destroying my heart and nervous system. Michael held up a small notebook, showing pages filled with medical information. I've been documenting every medication he gives me, every symptom I experience, every conversation we have about my treatment. I've also been secretly having my blood tested by a doctor not connected to the network. The results show toxins that shouldn't be there, combinations of drugs that are contraindicated and dangerous. They're making it look like I'm a drug addict who's doctor shopping and demanding dangerous medications. But the truth is I'm being systematically poisoned. The video showed Michael's hand shaking as he flipped through his notebook. Maria recognized the tremor as a neurological symptom consistent with certain types of drug toxicity. The why is simple, Michael continued. The collective knows I'm planning to come forward. They've intercepted communications. They've planted people in my organization. They've been watching my every move. They know about this room because I made the mistake of checking on it too frequently. I thought I was being careful, but they have resources beyond anything I imagined. So they decided to eliminate me in a way that will discredit everything I might say. When I die, it will look like an overdose. The media will say I was reckless, that I was mentally unstable, that I was addicted to prescription drugs. Some will say it was suicide. Others will claim negligence. But very few will consider murder because that would require acknowledging this network exists. Michael set down the notebook and leaned closer to the camera. Dr. Murray will be blamed. He'll likely go to prison for manslaughter or negligent homicide, but is not the mastermind. He's a pawn, a carefully chosen scapegoat who's in debt, who's desperate, who can be manipulated and then discarded. The Real killers will never be identified unless you follow the money trail I've documented. For the next 40 minutes, Michael detailed the specific individuals he believed were orchestrating his murder. He showed financial records of payments made to shell companies controlled by these individuals. He displayed communications between network members discussing the MJ problem and various solutions they had considered. Some of the earlier proposals included staging an accident or making it look like suicide from depression. But they had settled on a drug overdose administered by his own doctor because it fit the narrative they had spent years building about Michael being unstable and addicted. They approached Murray 18 months ago, Michael explained. He was facing foreclosure on his home, malpractice lawsuits from former patients, and crushing debt from a failed practice. They offered him a position as my personal physician with a salary of $150,000 a month. That's approximately 3 times what a concierge doctor typically makes. The money was irresistible to a man in his financial situation. But there were conditions. Specific medications had to be available. Certain protocols had to be followed. And most importantly, he had to keep certain people informed about my health status and treatments. Michael showed documents proving Murray's financial distress and then correspondence between Murray and individuals connected to the collective. The messages were coded but transparent to anyone who knew what to look for. Discussions of ensuring patient compliance and managing difficult situations were clearly instructions about controlling Michael through medication. I want to be clear, Michael said, his voice growing stronger despite his obvious physical weakness. Dr. Murray is not an evil man. He's a weak man who made terrible choices. He convinced himself he was helping me, that the medications were necessary for my health. The real evil lies with the people who manipulated him, who turned him into their instrument. When I die, he will realize what he's done. He'll have to live with that guilt forever. In a way, he's as much a victim as I am, though I find it hard to have sympathy for him right now. Michael pulled out another document, this one showing planning for his comeback concert series in London. They are going to use a tour as their cover. The stress of preparing for 50 shows, the physical demands, the pressure, it will all contribute to the narrative of why I needed so many medications. They'll point to my age, my past injuries, my anxiety about performing again. When I collapse from whatever combination of drugs Murray administers, they'll say it was inevitable, that I pushed myself too hard, that I was reckless with my health. But it's all manufactured. Every element has been carefully orchestrated. The video showed Michael standing and walking to a file cabinet. He pulled out a folder and held it up to the camera. This contained proof of the conspiracy to murder me. Emails, financial transactions, recorded phone calls, witness statements from people who were approached to participate or overheard discussions. I've hidden copies of this evidence in 3 separate locations, with instructions to release it if I die unexpectedly. But I'm also including everything here in this room because I don't know if I can trust the people I've asked to protect those copies. The network's reach is so extensive that anyone could be compromised. Michael returned to his chair, and Maria could see exhaustion settling over him like a heavy blanket. His next words came slowly, each one requiring visible effort. I need to tell you about the night I'll die. I don't know the exact date, but I know how it will happen because I've seen the pattern before with others who threaten the network. They'll wait until we're in final preparations for the tour, when stress is at its peak. Murray will give me a new medication or new combination, something he'll claim is necessary for sleep or pain. But it will be the fatal dose, carefully calculated to stop my heart in a way that looks natural or accidental. He might even try to revive me, genuinely panic when he realizes what's happened. But by then it will be too late. Michael's eyes filled with tears again. I'm scared. I don't want to die. Despite everything I've been through, despite all the pain and trauma, I want to live. I want to see my children grow up. I want to perform again. I want to experience moments of joy that aren't overshadowed by this terrible burden I've carried for so long. But I know I won't get that chance. The network has decided I'm too dangerous to leave alive, and they always get what they want eventually. He wiped his eyes and straightened in his chair one final time. My last message to whoever finds this is simple. Don't let them get away with it. Don't let my murder be dismissed as an accident or the negligence of one doctor. Follow the evidence. Arrest the people responsible. Protect the other victims. And please, please clear my name. I'm not the monster they made me out to be. I'm just a man who tried to fight monsters and lost. But maybe, through you, I can still win. The video ended. Maria sat in silence, feeling the weight of Michael's words pressing down on her. Around the room, hardened law enforcement officials wiped their eyes or stared at the floor, unable to process what they had heard. The autopsy report, Maria said suddenly, from 2009, we need to review it against what Michael just described. Dr. Foster pulled up the official findings on his laptop. The room read through them together, and the parallels were chilling. Every symptom Michael had predicted, every drug found in his system, every detail of his final hours matched his description. The official ruling was acute propofol intoxication administered by Dr. Conrad Murray, who was convicted of involuntary manslaughter and served 2 years in prison. He was right, the FBI agent said quietly. Murray was a scapegoat, but the real murderers were never even investigated. Because nobody looked deeper, Maria replied. Because it was easier to believe the story about the troubled pop star who died from his own recklessness. We need to exhume the body, someone suggested. Run new toxicology tests looking specifically for the compounds Michael mentioned. And we need to investigate every person he named in connection with his death, Maria added. Follow every financial transaction, track every communication, build the case exactly as he laid it out. But even as she spoke, Maria understood the enormous challenge ahead. 15 years had passed. Evidence had been destroyed, witnesses had died or disappeared, and the people responsible had grown even more powerful and protected. Proving murder after the fact, especially when the official case had been closed and the designated culprit had already been convicted, would be nearly impossible. There's still one more section of files we haven't reviewed, Dr. Foster said, pointing to a folder on the server labeled Insurance. I think we should see what's in there before we make any decisions about how to proceed. The insurance folder contained Michael's contingency plans, and as Dr. Foster opened the files, Maria began to understand the full scope of Michael's preparation. This wasn't just evidence collection. This was warfare. He created a web, Dr. Foster explained, clicking through layers of documentation. Multiple redundant systems, each one designed to trigger if the others failed. Dead man switches, automated releases, trusted intermediaries who didn't know about each other. If something happened to Michael, if he missed check-ins or specific conditions were met, the information was supposed to spread across multiple platforms simultaneously. So why didn't it? Maria asked. He died in 2009. Why didn't all this come out then? Dr. Foster opened another file, and Michael's face appeared on screen once more. This video was dated June 1st, 2009, just 3 weeks before his death. If you're watching this, then my insurance policies failed, Michael's recorded voice said. I suspected they might. The network has people everywhere, including people I trusted. They've likely compromised my systems or neutralized my allies. That's why this room exists as the ultimate backup. Everything is here, completely isolated from any network or outside communication. It can't be hacked or intercepted because it's not connected to anything. The only way to find it is through physical discovery, which I made as unlikely as possible while still being eventually achievable. Michael explained that he had designed the room to remain hidden for years, powered by independent solar systems and built with materials that would last decades. He wanted enough time to pass that the people who killed him might grow complacent, might believe they had gotten away with it. He also hoped that time would bring new technologies and new social awareness that would make the truth more believable. I studied history, Michael continued. I looked at other major cover-ups that were eventually exposed, Watergate, the Catholic Church abuse scandals, the entertainment industry protection of Harvey Weinstein. In each case, it took years or even decades for the truth to emerge. And it only emerged when society was ready to hear it, when enough cultural change had occurred that people could accept what previously seemed impossible. I'm gambling that by the time this room is found, the world will have changed enough to believe what I'm telling you. Maria considered this. In 2009, the #MeToo movement was still years away. The concept of institutional protection of abusers was understood by investigators and advocates but hadn't fully penetrated public consciousness. Social media existed but lacked the reach and influence it would later develop. Michael had been right to worry that his evidence would be dismissed or suppressed if released too soon. But I didn't just rely on timing, Michael said. I created multiple layers of insurance that activate under different conditions. The files you're accessing now contain everything you need to implement those layers. There are pre-written news articles with all supporting documentation. There are contact lists of journalists who specialize in investigative reporting, along with notes about which ones can be trusted and which ones are compromised. There are legal templates for prosecuting each individual named in my evidence. There are even public relations strategies for managing the inevitable backlash. Dr. Foster clicked through the folders Michael described. The level of detail was staggering. Michael had anticipated every possible obstacle and created tools to overcome each one. He had even included video messages specifically addressed to different audiences, one for law enforcement, one for journalists, one for the public, one for the entertainment industry. Play the one for law enforcement, Maria instructed. Michael's image shifted to a more formal presentation. He wore a suit in this video, sitting at the desk with his hands folded professionally. His voice was clear and authoritative, without the emotional vulnerability of the other recordings. To the law enforcement officials reviewing this evidence, I want to first thank you for your service and your commitment to justice. I know what I'm presenting you with is overwhelming. The scope of the conspiracy, the prominence of the individuals involved, the complexity of the crimes, all of it creates enormous challenges for investigation and prosecution. I also know that bringing charges against such powerful people will put your own careers at risk. The pressure to bury this case will be immense. Michael leaned forward, his expression intense. But I've done everything possible to make your job easier. The evidence is organized chronologically and by perpetrator. Each accusation is supported by multiple sources, documents, recordings, photographs, witness statements. I've cross-referenced everything and highlighted the strongest cases, the ones where prosecution is most likely to succeed. I've identified crimes that fall within statute of limitations and those that don't. I've even ranked the perpetrators by the strength of evidence against them, suggesting a strategic approach to arrests that will build momentum and encourage cooperation. The video showed Michael standing and gesturing to a chart behind him. I recommend starting with the mid-level operators, the managers and agents who facilitated the abuse but aren't powerful enough to completely control the narrative. Offer them immunity in exchange for testimony against the higher-level perpetrators. Use their cooperation to build cases against producers and executives. And finally, use all of that accumulated evidence to go after the top level, the people who created and maintained the collective. Michael sat back down, his expression softening slightly. I know some of you might question why I didn't come forward while I was alive. You might think I was complicit through my silence. But I want you to understand something crucial. I tried everything I could think of to stop this network without getting killed. I protected children when I could. I sabotaged careers of known abusers by refusing to work with them, even when it cost me professionally. I funneled money anonymously to organizations that supported abuse victims. I did everything except the one thing that would have gotten me murdered immediately, going public with names and evidence. He paused, letting that sink in. My silence kept me alive long enough to build this case. If I had spoken out in the 80s or 90s, I would have been killed and all this evidence would have died with me. The network would have continued unchecked. Instead, I sacrificed my reputation, endured global humiliation, and lived with the anguish of knowing what was happening while being powerless to stop it completely. But I did it so that eventually, someone like you could finish what I started. Don't let that sacrifice be meaningless. The video ended with Michael providing specific instructions for securing the evidence, maintaining chain of custody, and protecting witnesses. Every detail had been considered, every potential legal challenge anticipated. Maria realized she was looking at the work of someone who had spent decades preparing for this moment, even knowing he would never see it himself. "There's more," Dr. Foster said, opening another section of files. "He's got contingency plans for if the official channels fail. Alternative distribution methods, encrypted files ready to be released to the public if the authorities try to suppress the investigation. He even set up cryptocurrency accounts with funds designated for victim compensation and legal defense." Maria shook her head in amazement. He thought of everything. "Not everything," the FBI agent interjected, his tone cautious. He couldn't anticipate how the world would change. Social media, viral content, deepfakes, and AI-generated videos. The defense attorneys will argue that all of this could be fabricated. They'll claim someone created an elaborate hoax using Michael's image and voice. We'll need to authenticate every single piece of evidence forensically. "Then we do that," Maria replied firmly. "We authenticate everything. We build the strongest possible case. And we don't let anyone intimidate us into backing down." "Do you understand what you're suggesting?" the district attorney's representative asked. "The moment we start investigating these people, the moment we even hint at what we found, our lives will be turned upside down. The media scrutiny, the legal challenges, the professional consequences, this will consume everything." Maria looked around the room at the faces of her colleagues. Some showed determination, others fear, many a mixture of both. She understood their hesitation. This wasn't just a criminal case. It was a cultural earthquake that would shake multiple industries and institutions to their foundations. "Michael Jackson died thinking he was a failure," Maria said quietly. "He died believing the world saw him as a monster. He spent his final years isolated, medicated, and terrorized by the people who should have protected him. And after he died, the mockery continued. Late-night comedians made jokes about his death. The media focused on his eccentricities rather than his artistry. His children grew up hearing terrible things about their father. And all of it, every bit of that torture, was orchestrated by a network of abusers who wanted to discredit him before he could expose them." She picked up Michael's journal from the desk, holding it carefully. "This is his testimony. This room is his witness stand. And we're his jury. We get to decide whether justice exists or whether power and money can literally get away with murder. I know what my verdict is. What's yours?" The room remained silent for a long moment. Then the FBI agent nodded slowly. "We investigate. We authenticate. And if the evidence holds up, we prosecute." "Agreed," said the district attorney's representative. "But we do this methodically. We don't leak information. We don't hold press conferences. We build the case in complete secrecy until we're ready to bring charges. If word gets out too early, evidence will disappear and witnesses will be silenced." Over the next 6 months, the investigation unfolded with unprecedented secrecy and scope. A special task force was assembled, drawing members from multiple agencies. They worked in isolated facilities, using secure communications, following protocols typically reserved for national security operations. Every person involved signed agreements acknowledging the sensitive nature of the case and the potential risks to their safety. Dr. Foster led the forensic authentication team, subjecting every piece of evidence to rigorous analysis. They verified that the videos were indeed recorded in 2009 using Michael's voice and likeness without AI manipulation. They confirmed the age and authenticity of documents through paper analysis and ink dating. They traced financial transactions through banking records and found corroboration from Michael's claims. They interviewed witnesses who had been mentioned in his documentation, carefully approaching people who could provide information without alerting the subjects of the investigation. The authentication process revealed something remarkable. Michael had been meticulous to the point of obsession. Multiple sources confirmed every major allegation. Financial records matched his descriptions of payoffs and hush money. Medical records from independent sources verified the suspicious patterns of prescriptions he had described. Several witnesses, now older and some terminally ill, were willing to testify about what they had seen or experienced decades earlier. But the investigation also revealed the continuing power of the collective. Twice, witnesses died in accidents before they could give formal statements. 3 investigators received anonymous threats against their families. A storage facility containing backup evidence mysteriously caught fire. The network Michael had described wasn't just historical. It was still active, still protecting its members, still eliminating threats. Maria found herself reassigned to desk duty under suspicious circumstances, clearly an attempt to remove her from the case. She fought the reassignment and won, but the message was clear. Powerful people were watching, and they were worried. She hired private security for her family and varied her daily routines, taking seriously Michael's warnings about how the network operated. By month 8, the task force had enough evidence to bring charges against 12 individuals. They started with the mid-level operators, as Michael had suggested, arresting a talent manager and 2 former agents who had facilitated abuse in the 80s and 90s. The arrests were coordinated to happen simultaneously, preventing any chance for the suspect to destroy evidence or flee. The news broke globally within hours. Initially, the media coverage was skeptical, treating the arrests as potentially related to historical abuse cases but not mentioning Michael Jackson or the broader conspiracy. The suspect's lawyers immediately launched aggressive defense campaigns, calling the charges baseless and motivated by greed from alleged victims seeking settlements. But the task force had prepared for this response. 3 days after the initial arrests, they held a controlled press conference. Maria stood beside the FBI director and the U.S. attorney, and together they revealed the existence of Michael Jackson's secret room and the evidence it contained. They showed carefully selected excerpts from his videos, redacting names of victims and specific details that could compromise the ongoing investigation. They presented authenticated documents and explained the scope of the conspiracy. The world erupted. Social media platforms crashed from the volume of traffic as people shared and discussed the revelations. #MJTruth trended globally for weeks. Millions of people who had mocked Michael Jackson during his life and after his death suddenly confronted the possibility that he had been telling the truth all along, that he had been a victim rather than a predator, that the greatest character assassination in entertainment history had been deliberate and strategic. The entertainment industry went into crisis mode. Studios delayed releases. Production companies issued statements. Award organizations scrambled to address questions about honored individuals now under investigation. Some celebrities who had distanced themselves from Michael during the accusations came forward to apologize and share their own suspicions about the network. Others remained silent, and that silence spoke volumes. Within 2 weeks of the press conference, 6 more individuals named in Michael's evidence committed suicide. The official reports called them tragic responses to false accusations. But investigators found evidence suggesting at least 3 were actually murdered and staged to look like suicides. The network was eliminating loose ends, just as Michael had predicted they would. The legal proceedings stretched across 2 years. 16 individuals were ultimately indicted on charges ranging from child abuse conspiracy to commit murder. 8 reached plea deals in exchange for testimony against others. 3 died before trial could begin. 5 went to trial and 4 were convicted, though 1 conviction was later overturned on technical grounds. The civil cases were even more extensive. Hundreds of victims came forward, armed with courage from Michael's posthumous testimony. Class action lawsuits targeted the agencies and studios that had enabled the abuse. Settlement amounts totaled billions of dollars, paid out over decades. New laws were passed extending statutes of limitations for child abuse cases and creating stronger protections for whistleblowers. Throughout all of it, Michael's children maintained dignified silence publicly while privately working with victim advocacy groups. They established the Michael Joseph Jackson Foundation for Truth and Justice, funding investigations into institutional abuse and supporting survivors. They also worked to restore their father's reputation, carefully releasing music and materials that showed the man he truly was behind the manufactured controversies. 3 years after the discovery of a secret room, Maria stood in the Neverland Ranch estate once more. The property had been purchased by a consortium of victim advocates and transformed into a center for healing and education. The secret room had been preserved exactly as found, a museum and memorial to the man who had sacrificed everything to expose evil. She placed her hand on the desk where Michael had recorded his confession, feeling the smooth wood beneath her palm. Around her, tour groups moved through the space, listening to guides explain the history and significance of what had been found here. School children learned about institutional abuse and the importance of believing victims. Survivors found solidarity and support in this place that represented both terrible suffering and ultimate vindication. "Did we do right by you?" Maria whispered to the empty air, knowing Michael couldn't answer but needing to ask anyway. Her phone buzzed with a text from Dr. Foster. Another witness had come forward with information about 2 additional members of the network who hadn't been named in Michael's original evidence. The investigation continued, as Michael had known it would need to. Evil this entrenched couldn't be eliminated in one operation. It required persistent, patient, relentless commitment to justice. Maria typed her response, "I'm on my way." Then she looked once more around the room that had changed everything. On the wall, someone had hung a photograph of Michael performing, caught mid-dance move, his face showing pure joy. The caption beneath read, "He moonwalked through hell so others wouldn't have to walk through it at all." She smiled sadly, touched the desk one final time in silent gratitude, and left to continue the work. Michael had carried his burden for 40 years, until it killed him. The least she could do was carry it forward until justice was fully served. His secret had been exposed. His sacrifice had meaning, and his truth, denied for so long, was finally being heard by a world ready to listen and brave enough to act. The legacy of Michael Jackson, the real Michael Jackson, would not be the tabloid headlines or manufactured scandals. It would be this: a man who fought monsters in the only way he could, who built a case that outlasted him, who believed in justice even when it cost him everything. And in the end, from beyond the grave, he had won. The end.